everybody. Welcome back. I know it's been a while transitioning from one organization to another, but this is what Parent Team 6 is about. Is prior to this, for the last 2 years, I've been bringing attention to general education. And general education, CPS, entering into parental rights, special education, it is all one thing. And so Parent Team 6 is exactly that. Just like SEAL Team 6 is that we are going to have boots on the ground. We have no war plan and we have 18 theaters of war. Is that we have to have boots on the ground. We have to have air support, ground support. We are fighting 18 different theaters and nobody has any idea what's going on. And that is why we are losing. That is why our children are losing. And so tonight is the first example of what Parent Team 6 is going to do. Wendy Grooms Little, from my first school board meeting in Chesterfield County, that woman was there. I did not know her, and I watched her for a year. And I had no idea what was going on with these special education children. You know, I was trying to get a mask off my kid. I was wondering why in the world they had co-ed bathrooms for kindergartners in Chesterfield County. And after listening to her for a while, then going to the Board of Education and seeing those mothers first in the lineup every single meeting, I was like, what in the world is going on here? And what has happened is James Lane, who was under Northam, has passed on this atrociousness. And it has been going on for so long that now there's this bill, and I'm going to let Wendy, because this is her thing, is we're going to bring up, this is a patron would be Stanley with an R next to it. And what it is called, it is SB96. I'm going to bring it up in a second. It's Parental Behavior Technician Registration and Participation Pilot Program. And we're going to break it down, and I'm going to let Wendy explain it because I'm learning as you guys do. But this is what we have to start doing, is what I know a lot, but I don't know everything about. And so we have to start coming together and bringing what everybody else knows about a certain subject together, because there's so many pieces. They want us confused. And it's not until we come together, whether it's foster care or social workers in our schools, that involves CPS, that involves parental rights, that involves child sex trafficking. Special education kids are being targeted for child sex trafficking, transgender. We have to do this together. And so tonight, I'm excited that Wendy Grooms Little, one of my champions, and I tell you, is that my head has almost spun off in the last 2.5 years. And I can tell you this much: the special education parents of this state have my heart and my soul, because if I was one of them, I would have gone full postal on everybody. I don't know how they do it, and I don't know how they stay sane. So with that, everybody, please welcome Miss Wendy Little, also known as Aaron's mama.
Hello.
Hey, Wendy. How are you?
We are hanging in there the best we can.
Girl, I don't know. I mean, hands up to you and all of you, that because I've been to meetings where I have sat in so many where I have never been more disgusted with how you have been treated just trying to get your children educated. And I give you everything in the world. And so let's start off with a little bit about your story. Let's start with that. Because at the Parents Matter event in Henrico, you first got attention for Aaron in the news. And let's pull that up outside of the, there, we need you back on. Let's see. One second. So just real quick while I'm pulling this up, tell us a little about your story.
Well, my son was not diagnosed with autism until he was like in 4th grade. So he had behavior challenges that were just perplexing to everyone, including, of course, myself. And he went to kindergarten and was constantly kicked out of school. And he's my oldest child, and I knew nothing about special education. He was kicked out for behaviors. I kept begging for help and not understanding, why I was having.
And you guys are literally begging. Like, I've been to boards of education, and it is the same begging.
Yeah. Everybody
and they look at you. I sit in school board meetings, and I know Merv Doherty, our amazing superintendent, who they're probably going to give more raises to, but they look at you like, don't care. Like, it is the most outrageous thing I have ever seen. And I don't.
It is. Well, they don't know anything about special education, but they do dismiss us. And what's even more tragic is in your couple of minutes at the school board presentation, you're not seeing everything that we all truly go through because there's no way to do that. But Aaron was kicked out the last entire 2 weeks of kindergarten, which really was a violation. And the schools are required to conduct what they call child find, and that's to determine if a child has disabilities, and that was never done. And I knew nothing about it. So we went through years of him getting kicked out of school left and right, and then autism was discovered to kind of explain what was going on with some unusual behaviors, or quite a few. And then he came down with a medical condition requiring adult support assistance.
Now,
And
this is Aaron when he was much younger. He's now 15, right?
that's a few years ago. He is a teen now, so he doesn't really let mom take pictures. So that's like 2 years old at this time. So that was the best picture I had of him. So that was about a few years ago. He's 16 now. And what really hit me hard during our due process, which that'll be some other shows and
Those
things
due process hearings, I tell people when I post for yours or the other ones that I've been to, if you want to see a gross misjustice of anything, you go to a due process hearing for these children.
Wait till I send you the final communications on the whole case. It'll blow your mind. But that's not what we're here for tonight. But so a summary, he came down with a medical condition requiring adult support. And, the schools kept saying, well, it's too much for the nurses to do, so you need an aide. And because the nurses, there's like one nurse per school, and his needs were too big on a routine basis. So I got the required letters from multiple different doctors.
But this is what federal funding is for. And that's what people don't understand, is that these schools cannot say, well, we don't have aides. Your child can't go to school. Like, this is what this money and this is protections are federal. And this is what we're facing, is an unconstitutional education and literally a dismissal of being like, we don't care, you're out. And that's where everybody needs to understand.
Right. And so for 4 years, he had this condition. It was completely unsupported. I don't want to go into details and, be put out something that might be embarrassing to him. But
right. He's at the age now where it's harder.
I have been very, I've had to end up at prior school board meetings getting very honest about it because nobody was paying attention. But then what happened was
he needed assistance changing himself. We'll just say that. And he was sitting in stuff that no child should sit in all day long.
Yep.
Because they did not change your child who needed assistance. We'll just put it that way.
Yes. And
this went on forever. They refused. Like, it was
4 straight school years. They denied him appropriate aid. And I had medical letters of medical need and health plans from all over the place: his primary care, his primary GI, a specialty GI, Shriners Hospital even, and things. And they just felt like, well, he doesn't need it. When that's what they do, they gaslight you all the time. Well, we don't see it at school. Well, yeah, you do.
We're the professionals. We know what's best. Like, is what every parent hears, no matter.
So, right. And that continues to occur. So that happened for 4 years. And then he was at a private day school. Most people file due process to get a child into private day school to obtain specialized education that the child needs. Well, Aaron was already in a private day school, and I started questioning his standardized testing greatly. And the school refused to provide me any kind of work to look at, where could I might help him, support him, because his standardized tests were not typical of what his norm is. And they refused to provide me information whatsoever. At the end of the year, we have an IEP meeting. They still don't provide information to me. And so I just took my Kindle and got myself a lift and showed up at the school and said, I want my son's schoolwork. And I caught them giving him 6th grade math work or below.
Which, by the way, is Virginia and federal law for all parents. You can request your child under FERPA, your child's entire education record, and you can request their entire curriculum and teacher training material. That is federal and state law for all parents.
Right. And they just still refuse to do that. But sadly, that's another avenue
And
to
that's a
work
civil
on.
rights, that is a civil rights violation at the federal, and Attorney General Jason Miyares has an OCR. And until parents, every single parent starts filing these OCR complaints, if they get enough, they will pay attention. And it's one of those things that, you know what it's like. It's tedious to sit down and fill these things out. But until we start exercising our rights to fight back, they have no reason to change anything.
Right. And individual OCRs and individual FERPAs take forever. So if you're
They
trying to
do.
use that as, some sort of like, hey, you violated this, and then you send it for resolution and you send it to be, quote, investigated, it takes forever. So you can't really use that quote in your arsenal of they violated this and they violated that. So what happened was I showed up for his records and I got English work that where some of the worksheets actually physically said K through 5, grade 2 through 5. And I'm like, why is he in 8th grade and in his work is where do you put the comma in the sentence? That makes no sense to me. And so I've been questioning and they violated my rights, but there's sadly no real true enforcement either. But it takes, I've got one OCR that's still out there that's, gosh, almost 2 years old. So,
Well, the way that I got Chesterfield with Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, and this is what I tell parents across Virginia, I have the screenshot where my daughter, our children went to same middle school, sent her teacher, you may not speak to, assess, talk to, and he's a good principal. And it's the 8 things under Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. And that's how I got my child before I yanked her out, removed from systemic embedded SEL. But
right.
is that it is possible, but you have to have people willing. But I filed against the attorney, school board attorney, file against his bar license, because those things I tell people all the time. If you catch a school board attorney violating federal and state law, file against their bar license, because that stuff never goes away. You file a complaint against a superintendent, that stuff never goes away. Like these things follow these people, and it may seem like it's tedious, like you said, and it is, but is that it, as parents, is that we have to start doing the things that support and protect our children, because if not, we're just handing this stuff away.
And even if you do, it's a huge challenge and it requires a lot of knowledge and education. And my education primarily comes from the need to learn more to try to get ahead of the school division in a whole lot of violations. And
they don't notify of us because they don't want us to know. That's another thing, is people don't even know these things, that they can, what do I do when, and that's why, why I created Parent Team 6 is sped. And that's why I created the group that the sped parents across the state are in, on Facebook, is because of the questions I was getting, I couldn't answer, is that we have to start doing this, because I need to know what you know. And the parents that are fighting SEL for general education, the parents that are fighting mental health for general education, they need to know how the special education fits into it, because it is all part of one system that is working to destroy all of our children.
And when it comes to FERPA and OCRs, the people who would make the most FOIA, FERPA, OCR complaints are going to be the ones who need that information, and the ones who utilize those systems the most are special education parents, because they're trying to protect the rights of their kids. Not that general education kids or parents like yourself don't, but you became knowledgeable and you did, but not everybody has all of the breadth of understanding of what the school divisions are supposed to be required to do, what they're funded to do, what assurances are when they accept funding that they're supposed to execute, the programs as intended. And, special education students are presumably supposed to be protected by IDEA and FAPE.
All right, let's pull. What do you want to do, FAPE or IDEA first?
Well, I just wanted to finish where Aaron was. So I caught his private day under educating him. I went, I got his records, I turned it in to a high level person at the school division as well as his IEP team. And I said, well, he can't go to 9th grade like this. And the chief academic officer agreed and said, well, he can take 8th grade, but only if he goes to the public school. So they hired new special education people during the summer after that, who weren't having any of that. And that's why my son has not been in school for a year and a half in public school. the same public school that his little brother goes to, and the same public school that all the neighborhood kids go to. So this is why my son's case has a lot of attention on it, and
So
it will
this article, okay, this article right here, this came out in September, and it would have been August that you were on the news when we were in Henrico at the Youngkin Parents Meh event, as I call it. Yeah. So what did this article, because I see that the student, was disenrolled, that student was indefensible. So what did Chesterfield say here?
Well, what happened with that? So we got up to that point where Aaron was going to repeat 8th grade because he was undereducated in 8th grade at his private day school. The new special education administration came in, 2 new people after that was decided. And then I got just a really unfortunately written IEP that I didn't receive until the day before school started. So I called VDOE and I got the parent ombudsman and I consulted with him. I said, well, I can't sign it flat out and I can't not sign it flat out. What should I do? And because if I didn't sign it, he wouldn't go to school. If I did sign it, then I was signing for things that were inappropriate and that were not appropriate.
Which is what they want you to do. I mean, they're also falsifying IEPs. Like my sister teaches, and she said that they're falsifying them, telling parents their children don't need them anymore because they don't have the aid, they don't have the funding. And she said, Ann, I have a child that sits and rocks and moans in her general education class because they have told those parents that this child doesn't need an aid anymore. They're falsifying and they're lying about IEPs.
They cannot take away services until they do an evaluation that proves that they no longer need services. And then you have a right to a quote independent education evaluation. And independent means it's supposed to be independent, but what they do
how many SPED parents know that? That's a
lot don't. And a lot of the reasons that people don't know what they need to know is it's not highlighted on at least our website. Fairfax, actually,
a lot of this stuff is supposed to be that's what my education transparency legislation last year is that school boards are not following federal law or state law as to what you're supposed to be notified of at least annually, verbatim, federal and state law. And either they'll bury it in a tiny little paragraph in a student conduct. And that's one thing that every school board should strive is transparency, because the question is, what are you hiding?
At least, exactly. And at least have a special education handbook. And that's something that I've advocated for when I've filed state complaints for Aaron. And a lot of people don't realize that they can file state complaints if there's a violation. So the challenge is it's so difficult for parents because there are so many layers of the onion of special education. And then you have so many other divisions and departments that you lean on, that, different laws and regulations come from different departments. And it is highly complex and complicated. And it's taking me years to get to the level of knowledge I have, but then I just realized I needed to have more knowledge than seemed to be accessible to me. So I started taking all kinds of classes. I take them all the time. I've taken some law classes, and I read and research all the time. And
see here, it says she refused provisions that would see her son to go without a medical aid, which is what they want you to sign, just like CPS wants you to sign to get it done. And you did the right thing, which is no, I'm not going to partially sign something that's partially going to take care. And that is very hard for parents to do if they're offered half-ass of something, excuse my mouth, but parents, it's like school choice. Last year, people were like, well, it's better than nothing. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Better than nothing is not how we look at our children.
Right. And we'll get to that. And your audio went way down.
Mine did, or was it yours?
Your audio went way down.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Not too much better.
It might be better when I pull this. We'll just only pull this up when we need to. All right, is that better?
Let me turn mine up. I'm not talking.
Anybody out there want to
Yeah,
let me
mine's
know?
all the way up.
Okay. All right, I'll turn mine up. All right, so, okay, I think they hear us fine out there. I think you and I are just having communication. So let's jump in. Let's turn the bill first.
Yes.
And then we'll pick it apart.
Yes.
Okay. So here. All right. So this, guys, you can go into Google and you can type in. Now it's annoying because you can have, they duplicate bill numbers each year. And so it's not just, which makes no sense because how many numbers are there that could be, but so type, like for this, I just typed in Virginia 2024 session SB96. But a great thing you should be using if you want to follow a particular issue right here is lobbyists in a box. And you click that and you can click what issues you want to follow and you'll get notifications, whether it's education, guns, you know, I think if you can pick like up to 4 before you have to pay, but it is definitely worth it, like the $1 or whatever you have to charge. Especially right now, everybody, lobbyists in a box, right there, and it will update you on as to what is coming through because they will come through every day up until the cutoff and even after the cutoff, which is a zinger itself. So here, this would be Patron Stanley, who is a Republican. It is a bill to amend the Code of Virginia by adding a section number 22.1-2153-3 relating to special education. It's called Parental Behavior Technician Registration and Participation Pilot Program. Now this is on the, this came in pre-filed the 2nd, January 5th, the Department of Education launched its Office of Mental Health and Behavior. So all of this stuff, this is coming from more grant money coming from the Communities Safe Communities Act that was passed in 2022. So the states are now getting more money to do this crazy madness. But this one here is different because it's like the Virginia Illiteracy Act, as I call it. They're mandating divisions to do stuff without funding. Correct? Here is there's no.
I don't know. I don't see any mention of funding per se. I don't know who would be providing the funding to train parents as they're proposing to be RBTs.
So
registered behavioral technicians. So I don't know where they're necessarily expecting if the funding would come from the state or not.
And he doesn't have you have to file like the cost of it. I mean, that's one of the main things with legislation. But so when you pull bills up, this is important right here. So you'll see is that you have up here, history, highlight, PDF. Any legislation, if you want to backtrack it, you want to hit history. Okay. And then once this goes into session, this will start filing. It'll go into committee. The committee will vote. It'll have amendments. You'll have to read what amended it. And that's a lot of the times when Democrats do the right thing, though. When their legislation gets butchered in subcommittee, they pull out and the legislation has no patrons. Republicans, for some reason, think that how many bills they pass, even though they're abhorrent, is what matters. It's not what matters. But so here, this will start to have pile up and you'll see votes and you'll see amendments and you'll have a long list. But for right now, it's just been introduced. And so what you'll hit is always hit the first one filed. And then you hit highlight. And what this does is everything yellow is new. And then usually you'll have a lot of cross out red lines. And so originally the bill stated, or the legislation stated, that the Code of Virginia is amended by adding a section numbered as follows. Ignore all the yellow. And it said that the provisions of this act shall expire, that the Board of Education shall report annually to the governor and the General Assembly by October of each year for the duration of the parent behavior. This doesn't make any sense because this should all be new. It looks like this is an entire new section. But so the bill says, all right, you want to help me explain this? What is okay? First of all, let's look at applied behavior analysis. So this is existing.
Yeah, I'm really having a hard time hearing you.
Hearing me?
But yes, it was fine before and loud and clear, but I don't know if one of your buds might be going out or.
I don't know. I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I haven't touched anything on my phone, but I was
I'm gonna
if you want to keep going through the things that you have planned, and then maybe since I can't hear you well, we can, once you're done sort of going through the
okay.
that
I'm gonna let
people
you
through the legislation part, then we can go back to SB96 on the front page and then go through the links, and I can go ahead and give you the
all right. Candace
not my
is
opinions,
on.
but also that of many other people as to why we don't support this bill.
Candace is writing me on YouTube. Candace, would you like to jump on? I can send you a link. Candace Lucas, who is like the BAM sped. But okay, so she's writing me and she said, Candace said, there's funding under IDA Part B, 611, 619. She doesn't want to join us, but that's okay. I get it. School divisions are not underfunded. They are mismanaged. Amen. And then it says, this bill is placing FAPE, free, appropriate public education on parents, not
exactly
the schools. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to go back to the bill itself? Because that's exactly my problem with this bill. And Candace and I had not even discussed this, but I just ran across this and I'm like, no.
So here it's right. So it's right here.
Right. So the summary tells us if you go to the summary,
okay.
The summary, what caught my eye was it says, we will train you in some way, or directs the Board of Education to train parents who would want, I mean, it would have to be, they can't force parents to be trained, but that they would train parents of students with autism, which includes my son, to become a registered behavior technician in order to provide assistance to their children, both in the classroom as a volunteer, or other
we
things
don't have
outside
the
the classroom and the home environment. This is problematic because they are saying we will train you
in order to provide assistance to their children. Okay, so you're getting money from the federal, the state, and the local.
Yeah,
our taxes are paying for this, but now parents have to come in order to provide assistance for their own children, both in the classroom as a volunteer under the supervision of a licensed behavior analysis or other qualified. That's the thing, other qualified. They're not qualified. And I'm going to be speaking about that on lobby day, about what these qualified people are doing to our children. Individual and outside the classroom and home environment.
Outside the classroom in the home environment as well.
Which means the behavior analysis people are going to be in your home environment that's what that is that if you sign up to do this to help your child, they're going to be up in your business and not analyzing what you don't want. And these are not people, these are probably social workers, to be quite honest with you, because I know there's bills coming in to make social workers mental health, even though they're doing it anyway.
Yeah, and then there's two huge red flags with this. One, they want to train parents to provide service to their own children as a volunteer. That's forced labor.
Yes, it is.
As a volunteer.
To educate your children.
Yeah. And so they're receiving the funding, but then they want to put the responsibility on the parents to provide.
RBTs are master data collection. And
so so training, I think a lot of parents would want to do that because we need something else other than just being parents. But
you want to do
there's where the slippery slope comes in.
Exactly.
The slippery slope is when this, if it passes, the slippery slope for me, the two big there's one, FAPE is the responsibility of the school division. By asking parents to volunteer, we're not school division employees. We're volunteers, not paid. If they want to do this
This
bill
is
and they say
exactly
we will
what they're
pay the
doing.
parents, some parents may want to do that.
This is
The other
exactly what they're
thing
doing
is
with the
that
creative.
independence and transition are supports that the school is supposed to provide as a part of education to promote the ability of children to be independent of their homes, independent of their parents, to go into adulthood. And if they remain dependent on their parents through a program like this, then that would be, in my best opinion, violating transition and
Well, exactly. Who's liable?
independence requirements that are under the IDEA and FAPE. Yep.
Who's liable? That's another thing. This could be the most moronic. This is what happens when people who don't understand education write legislation. Is that
exactly?
I don't have any idea what somebody, and I'm gonna say he's probably got a fuzzy red vest on. This is where this is coming from. If it has an R.
That was a great point, because I believe that it would lead me to believe that they're going to make the parent liable as well, because you're not a school division employee and they want you to be a volunteer. So say this bill passes. This is where I'm very concerned about the slippery slope. And in my opinion, it can't pass. In the opinion of others I've spoken with, this cannot pass, because you can't force parents to volunteer.
I will be down there with you, and I will get, this is what Parent Team 6 is designed to do, is that when when the bat signal goes out, it may not be my thing, but I will be there. Whether it's CPS, child sex trafficking, special education, that is why I'm building Parent Team 6, is that when the bat signal goes out, it may not be my area of expertise, but bodies will be there to support those people, because that is the problem that we have had all along, is that we do not show up for each other. But
I mean, they're not asking anyone else to be a forced volunteer for anything either, other than special education parents here, but my concern is, if this bill passes, how will it really look? It might look like, okay, we are going to offer you this program. They said provide support. Are they going to fund it fully, or are they just going to give access? Or, it's supposed to be a 40-hour class. And I think a lot of parents would love to have that information and training. However, how will it look like when it's designed? Will it be like, that's provided you a 40-hour class?
This is what happens.
And in return, you have to volunteer for the rest of your students' K through 12 career.
Virginia does not write legislation. This is what they do. They do not. Other states, you will read pages of legislation. This is what Virginia does, is they will write these little, and then they pass it to the Board of Education. But you know what? Here's the thing, is that under the Constitution of Virginia, the General Assembly has the ultimate authority in everything education. Everything outcomes-based education, everything before George Allen used to go back to the General Assembly after the Board of Education was done with it for approval. And then at some point in time, they stopped doing it. So that means that every single thing that has come out of the Board of Education since that moment has been unconstitutional, because the General Assembly has the ultimate authority in everything, not the Board of Education. They're not elected. They have no right to write law, which is what they're doing, and then put it into, and then make it required into our school systems. And so I've told Nick Freitas, all of them that looked at the transgender dignity policy and wondered why straight children had to opt out. And I said, this is why you need to read the Constitution, is that the ultimate authority comes to you. And that means everything goes back to you from the Board of Education. Because if you're going to write legislation that passes it to the board, who is not an elected representative of we the people, then it goes to them. They write it. It comes back to you. You approve it before it goes into our children. And that means that 20 years of education is unconstitutional. And that's my soapbox right there about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's putting the responsibility of FAPE on the parent instead of the school division, which would be irresponsible, illegal, and unethical. I think there are other illegalities about that. Typically any other time they don't want you in school.
They lock you out. I have parents calling me saying, they brought my second grader to me. I can't get in the building. What should I do? And I say, you would not do what I would do. I would call the sheriff, and I would if I can't get in the building where my kid is going to school, the hell if I'm sending them back into that building if I cannot get in that building.
But and it makes me wonder, where did this idea come from? Who's behind this, and what's their purpose?
I can tell you this right here is that before this governor, I have never seen this. The bill requires the Board of Education to report annually to the governor and the General Assembly, because where's the checks and balances? The governor is the executor. Okay. Nobody
Mhm.
is that he is that not there for anybody to report to. He has the General Assembly and he has the people under him. But is that I will tell you that much just right here is that this is this, and I'm gonna, you know me, I'm gonna dig as soon as Monday is over and lobby day. Me and this bill, we're gonna have about 3 days of locking ourselves, and I'm gonna figure this out because I can figure out what this man had 868 days ago for lunch and approximately what time he ate it, and you know I can. But
Yeah.
is that this comes from somewhere, and
Yeah. Who proposed this? Who brought this to Mr. Stanley? I don't know him. And what do they think the purpose is? If it's just trying to take responsibilities off the schools, but I think there's a lot of illegal
well,
things
there's
about this
people
bill.
like Alec. Is that people don't know? Alec is the workforce. They are the bill mill. Is that these bills are churned out by NGOs, non-government organizations, and they are
Right.
given to lawmakers, and they are literally they're bill mills. Alec is one of them. They're the workforce, our kids to death organization, and you've got what's her name, Emily Brewer's Alec. You've got, I mean, John McGuire's Alec. Is that you've got a whole list of these Alec legislators, and is that
Yeah.
that's who these people are? Is these bill mills, and they will these real written legislation like I did last year, and I have 14 pages to close the loopholes from our
Mhm.
teachers raping and beating our special education children, raping our children, and calling it consensual sex at the age of 13. I had 14-page legislation written, and
Mhm.
not one Republican. John McGuire, you know what he said to me? Is this something the governor would approve? I'm sure you can imagine how that conversation went.
Oh, I'm
But
sure.
this is the product of something. This is not something this man came up with. Um,
Something. Yeah. I'm very curious to, if there would be a way to know who. I wouldn't be surprised if school board attorney groups didn't put that in there somehow, but typically the schools, the public schools, they don't really like the parents in there. They make it difficult for you to visit your child to
that's what
just observe
amazes
them for
me
a
is
day.
they don't want parents in the classrooms because they don't want us seeing what's going on.
Right.
And so that's what's interesting to me about this, especially with these collaborative classrooms, is the gifted kids, being in with the sped kids. But I want to jump just real quick and close, and we can jump in tomorrow and dig into this more.
Well, we can
Maybe, but
complete sort of high level. I noticed that so, you can read the bill a little more further. And I've already mentioned, certainly what my concerns are. And Dr. Lucas has chimed in with hers that are similar than mine and brought up a few other components as well. I'm concerned about, the school divisions required to provide FAPE, which is U.S. Department of Ed. If you go to the IDEA screen and that is a bit of about IDEA. IDEA, I just want to mention these are a couple of quick slides so that maybe people can reference them and read on their own a little bit. It's very complicated and it's a lot of bits and pieces and moving parts, but IDEA was designed many years ago to ensure that students with disabilities had access to education, because there was a time when they didn't. I grew up across the street from a little boy who had severe autism and there was no school for him. So
right.
I've seen
It
that
was the
in
the
action.
Rehabilitation Act of
IDEA
1973.
requires
Yeah,
that all children with disabilities receive education, and that looks different for each one depending on the nature and the severity of their disability. So that is a law. They are funded. The school divisions are funded for that. And then you go into what is a free, appropriate public education, which is known as FAPE. Free education basically means the public education system pays for the education. So parents aren't required to go, well, my child can't really make it in the general population because they can't read and they're dyslexic or they can't do math at all, or they're just severely disabled enough that they can't participate in the same way. That way, parents are not responsible for sending them to private specialty schools.
But here, so this is where, real quick, this is where my expertise and what pieces you guys, and even Title I, I did the live the other day about how the equity people have gotten it wrong, is that when Obama rewrote No Child Left Behind into Every Student Succeeds Act, he made Title I, all children at risk under Title I. He also opened up IDEA for all children. So that's where your money here, this is for second step. Okay. I found this when I was doing all of my, SEL, is that this is from second step, which is one of the main SEL funds for purchasing SEL. And it breaks it down by state. And if you zoom in, look at this, IDEA special education. It even tells you how much IDEA money you can use per state. And then look, Title I. This is for social emotional learning. Okay, how much migrant education money you can use for social emotional learning. Title I Part D, Title I Part 2 is that this is what McKinney Homeless, you can use the McKinney Homeless Assistance Act you can use for social emotional learning. And it breaks it down. Let's see, let's zoom out and find Virginia.
And see, that's great because this also shows the complexities where this is kind of your wheelhouse and you're able to see how that meshes in with special education and where funding is.
And also
and where sometimes they're claiming they don't have appropriate.
This is why they don't have money for your children, is because they're giving it to all children for all children to have mental health.
Well, and also, in my opinion, they are spending, and especially through the pandemic, they had all these additional funds, and they're using them on what I call socio-political programs. And in my opinion, they have no business in school. We need to focus on reading, math, write, history, and not all of these socio-political programs.
This is how degrowth communism works, is that the degrowth is that academics goes out the window, and then you have a well-being economy. Okay, well-being, everybody. So academics literally have gone out the window. How in the world are these children with everything? They have SEL and family life. They've got mental health and family life. It's pretty much all your health class. You have an SEL systemically embedded into and now they have a mental health curriculum, and now you have trauma-informed learning. When are these? So it's called degrowth communism, is that actual learning out the window, and then you have a well-being economy. It is literally part of the ESG well-being. It is called degrowth communism. We are living socialism. The medicalization of children from Lenin and the Bolsheviks. This is my history master's coming into. Then you've got Trotsky, you've got Stalin, you've got Mao, you've got Hitler. This is literally, we are living the nightmare people are not recognizing. But right here, Virginia, IDEA special education grants, they're telling you what you can spend. That would be 292 million IDEA dollars can be spent for social emotional learning.
And I remember that we had a school board meeting, and I feel like it was September of not this past year, but the year before, where they talked about wanting to go on a pilot program like that. And I said, we can't take care of the 8,200 children with IEPs. How are you going to do 64,000 with IEPs? And they wanted to do a pilot in that. And I thought,
they do have the IEPs now. And that is what Miguel Cardona, let me pull this up real quick, is the new revision of IDEA that they're doing. I just have screenshots of it, but you can, under the name of equity, they're going to make all children, all children under the name of equity must now be treated as, and not only that, they're getting rid of parental consent.
They can't fully get rid of parental consent if parents go ahead and sign the appropriate documents that say no.
If they know,
and I did that years ago. So that's another discussion for another day.
Okay. So right here, it says We propose to rescind current 300.154, which would remove the requirement for parental consent prior to accessing a child or parent's public health benefits or insurance for the first time. We propose
For
to
the
revise,
first time.
we propose to revise the current parental notification requirements, that the required parental notification for the state, but it goes on and it would say, it would modify the reference to parental consent to confirm that the parental consent to disclose publicly PII, which is public personal information, and that parents retain all. And it goes on to, I mean, the whole thing. But not only that, but it goes on to say, I don't know if I got the right screenshots when I sent these to myself for a second, but
and those are good points, because that shows also intent for school divisions to use children's private health insurance benefits to provide FAPE, which is not the health insurance job to provide FAPE in the education department or provide educational services. And now this Bill 96, furthermore, sort of, says, well, we're going to put ownership on the parents too. So it gives me a distinct feel that the school divisions are muscling their way out of, or attempting to muscle their way out of, performing their obligations. The challenge is that there are many laws and regulations out there, and they can be repeatedly broken, and there is no accountability. There's no accountability out there, and we need that. We need that tremendously.
That's the one thing that these people don't understand as duty bearers. And people look at me all the time and they say, you can't say that about the governor. The hell I can. He is an elected official. This is not a totalitarian dictatorship. Okay. I can criticize every elected official because this is we the people. This is a constitutional republic with we elect representatives as our democratic.
Right. So if we want to end so that we don't get too many people confused and get off topic of SB 96, free appropriate education, the free means it's provided by the public education, even if the child is sent to a private day school, which is a specialty school for children with certain disabilities, who have either special teaching, I can't remember the word right now, but like an autism school, most of the teachers, if not all the teachers, are ABA or autism certified. Because you have children with sometimes, they're nonverbal, they have explosive meltdowns. They really can't be in a classroom with other children.
Right here, education services must meet individual needs.
Right, individual needs, and that's what individual IEP program is: individual education appropriate for the child, and
but
each
they're
one is
giving
different.
Personalized learning to every child. That's the new thing. How does that work?
And I questioned that at the school board meeting. But so when we talk about FAPE, one of the biggest landmark cases is called Andrew F. versus Douglas County. And what that means is you can't just put a child in a wheelchair in a classroom and let them sit there by themselves all day. There are a number of important points to this, but just to try to keep it high level. Basically, it says you just can't, keep a kid with a wheelchair sitting in a class by themselves. You have to challenge them to their best capabilities.
This is the Supreme Court, which is what I try to tell people, is the way that we function, and this is how parental rights are legally enforced, is that the Supreme Court for over 100 years, and this is how common law comes in, is that you can't just come in and say no to parental rights, because the Supreme Court creates common law, which is constitutional law, which is why parental rights are constitutionally protected. Not only are they naturally God-given, is that the Supreme Court, when they rule on things like this, these consistent rulings is what makes things constitutional law. And when you have a state passing law that violates the Constitution, therefore the law has to be challenged. It is unconstitutional. And that's what we have to start telling these people, is that, no, I'm sorry, but the Supreme Court has ruled this, and therefore you doing this makes this law unconstitutional. And that is how we shut these people down, is by returning to the way America works.
Right. And so like the two big takeaways from this, and there are many, because this was a landmark case, are, you have to educate the child and challenge their abilities, because in order to have growth, they have to be challenged, and that challenging curriculum looks different for everyone. You don't want to kill them with education, but they need to be challenged. Also, that it needs to be sure that they do have access to education as other non-disabled students are, and
And
we
that
have found that
includes
that's problematic. That
transportation.
has been problematic. I don't want to discuss any more on that at this moment, at this juncture, but that has been problematic. And so, furthermore, to move into independent living skills before moving away from home, and that is the page that's on understood.org. Understood.org is a very, very good resource for parents with children with special education, in special education, and they have a tremendous number of pages that put out things not so much in legalese, but easy to read language. But there might be hundreds of pages in here. But independent living skills. So SB96 is going to take away those independent living skills, because if a parent is sitting with that child at school every day through, how is it going to look? We give you 40 hours of training. Are you going to have to sit with your kid in return for that from grade 2 through 12? How are they going to design that is another one of my concerns, that if it doesn't pass, it can't be designed. I do think that parents would love to get
But
those
see, like,
educational skills for
what,
their
and
children.
this is
But
what I feel like I need to, just in closing, and then you can close, is that this is the slippery slope, just like school choice, is that
yeah,
when they give you, okay, pennies on the dollar, is that when they dangle, oh, well, you can come in and you can do this, you're going to think, okay, I can finally help my kid. But you have to look at the long game. You have to look at the fact that these schools are not underfunded, okay? Virginia, I will say this again, is the only state that still the money goes through the board of supervisors before it even gets to the school board. And that is a law that somebody needs to write, because why? So how much you live in Chesterfield with me. So the board of we have our per pupil ratio, for considering the fact that our ability to pay, our poverty rate, and our annual, our home value at like $85,000. When I did the 2019-2020 census, our per pupil rate 10,500. That we are equal with Wise County, Wythe County, who have household income at $36,000. The question is, where is that money? Is that why in the world does Chesterfield, with our ability to pay our poverty rate and our household is $85,000?
I can tell you where. I can tell you where some of it is, because the county owns a school building, and so the school building debt is charged to the school division, but the county owns the building, and that component of the budget is calculated in a different way, which makes our per pupil spending different, and it has to do with the calculation because of that, because the county owns the school buildings, not Chesterfield. But just quickly for transition services, because this is a big highlight, and maybe when you post this or whatever, just post, if you can, the links to the pages we discussed so that people can read a little more about them.
Everything that we've done, if you go to if you're on Facebook right now, if you go to the YouTube channel, I have posted every single link that we have discussed.
Yeah, transition, because I really want to end on this, because this is huge when it comes to SB 96, because education is supposed to teach children reading, writing, math, etc. Also to grow and to be independent, and things like that. And especially with special education, though, there's extra focus on independent living skills and transition services, because they're disabled. They may not have the life skills that other children have. So if we go to transition services, just quickly, on number 2, it says, is based on the individual's child's needs under transition, the transition page, ed.gov. Based on the individual child's needs, taking into account the child's strengths, preferences, and interests, including instruction, related services, which is a whole different discussion for another day, community experiences, development of employment and other post-school adult living objectives, and, if appropriate, acquisition of daily living skills, which my son needs those, and provision of a functional vocation. That is huge because that further, in addition with the independent living skills, transition services is sort of the pathway to do that for children with disabilities. So they're supposed to be supported in additional ways to be able to try to go and have independence after high school.
Right.
You know, and if the parent is performing all of those functions as a volunteer, then where is the child getting independence from the parent?
But see,
that's another component of SB96 that concerns me, is that it could take away the independence from the parent. So those are my big highlights on why I oppose that bill and why most of the folks I've spoken with oppose it.
As somebody who's not a SPED parent, I will speak to oppose this, because I can give you the amount of education failures that have started like this, where people pass unanimous bipartisan, what they do not understand, they do not care what the outcome is because it's getting passed on. I mean, you're talking about seamless data sharing about 5 years. That sounds like a great idea. Unanimous bipartisan. Is that this bill, it is nonsensical, and there is not enough information. Is that this needs to be pages of this man knowing what he's talking about, and he better have specialists up in there talking about how this is going to work and this is going to work with this parent. Is that without a plan, nobody should be voting on anything. If there is not a plan, we do not vote on it, because we do not wait for the Board of Education, because the department does not have the constitutional authority.
Well, why couldn't you put a bill out there and say we could employ parents? Why couldn't you employ the parents? Why are you forcing them to be volunteers?
And that's the thing, is that,
I mean, they're trying to get teachers in the educational system by paying for their teaching licenses and certificates. So if they really want to train parents because they lack enough staff, how about train the parent and hire the parent if they want to do that? But, you know, the volunteer language gives me a very forced labor feeling, and how that would really look once things are orchestrated.
So here, how can parents voice their opinion on SB before it's voted on? Who can they email? Okay. So this is how it works. Now, I lived through this last year. Senate bills and House bills are different. House bills, you can speak via Zoom when they're in committee. If this goes to a subcommittee, which I'm not sure if it has yet, which is where my legislation went, you cannot speak via Zoom. You have to be there in person. You can start writing. You can start writing your local delegates and senators. And that's what I will do today, is I will put up the links how to do that. Start writing them in your opposition to this. But if this goes to a subcommittee, let me pull it up and see if it's gone to a subcommittee yet. It is still in the committee on education, which, by the way, is Hashmi, Lucas, Locke, Sutherland, Peak, Pillion, Favola, Boysko, Bagby, Head, Aird, Val Valkenburg, Durant, Pekarsky, and Craig. Hashmi chair. Now, Senate Education, now there is a subcommittee.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks, so this, I will follow this and let you know when this is, we will stay on top of this. I will get PT, you can see down here, pt6.org. I will get this up there on Facebook. We have got a group you can look for at parenting, and also my public, everybody, I'm public as all get out. And so you will have all the information on this. But one, I would start writing these people. Hashmi, Lucas, Locke, Sutherland, Peak, Pillion, Pavola, write the members. But if it goes, the Senate is different than the House, is that the Senate, if it goes to the subcommittee, the only way that you get your voice heard is if you are in that room. And and we are close enough, we will be in that room if it goes to subcommittee. But that's where stuff goes to die. Is that so? But if this stays and it does not go to subcommittee, it will be different. But I would start right now being proactive, and I would start writing these people. I would start writing your delegates, your senators. I would start writing everybody and asking a whole lot of questions and getting
maybe
very loud
tonight
about this.
I'll put together something, because I think if we keep
key
it
points.
universal, to the point, we talk about faith, volunteerism, independence, transition services, and we just keep it at highlight bullets and say, these are the reasons I don't support this bill. And if enough people, and I believe I know enough about special education at this point to say that those are probably the major factors, just like
Between
Dr.
you
Lucas and I
and
have not
me and who
specifically
we know.
talked about this bill, but we agree. And other people with whom I've spoken have agreed. And if we leave it, high level and bullet point, like I believe it violates this, it creates challenges with this, because he has another bill that talks about, not supporting forced work and things like that. So if we have if I were an official organization with you and other people, a lot of folks like that would all put out a common communication, and maybe I'll work on something like that. Now, these are going to be like, I am not an attorney. I am not a PhD. I am just a mom who's had to learn everything the hard way and study hard. But I can pull out something that people, if they would like and they agree, they can send it out, and it can perhaps send a very strong, somewhat universal message.
To very simple things like, I need you to explain this.
Yeah.
I need you to explain this, because I can tell you from conversations I had with Bryce Reeves, Nick Freitas about the dignity policy, is I said, I'm going to need you to explain how this is going to work. When this came out of the Department of Education, the Board of Education, I'm going to need you to explain to me verbatim how schools are going to make this work. And that's what this people need. That's as
and they don't know, because they want to send it to the Board of Education.
Hands off. And remind them that the Constitution of Virginia says that they have the ultimate authority. So you need to tell me what this is going to look like, because I'm not sure if you're quite aware, but every division, it's not just Loudoun and Fairfax, every division in this state is a dumpster fire. And I tell everybody
we have so many children with no access to education, and it's ridiculous. There's many that I know about, including my own. And
I don't know if
they want to blame the child and blame the parent. And, we have these big fish to fry and these huge things going on. And, I wish I had seen, more legislation with teeth about accountability for corrective action plans and things like that are not being done for the children.
Who wrote your article? Sean S. Jones at Times Dispatch. And about this is what I would do. Everybody write him and say,
no, don't write him.
Not him? Okay.
No, he's overwhelmed.
Well, I'm just saying.
He's overwhelmed. He can't report everything, but
there's a special education.
There's expected to be different additional series on this and other things going on. There are things going on that need to come to a conclusion. People just want to know what to
do. Is that if you know a reporter, if you know a journalist, if you know somebody that works, is that if you know, is that we all know somebody who knows somebody, is that this is where you have to sit down, and this is where the rubber meets the road. This is what I have done for the last 2.5 years, 16 hours a day, is when from the moment, and I know you do the same, that my feet hit the floor, God puts my armor on and I go, and I do not stop until I fall down and sleep, and I get up and do it again. And this is what is that if we are going to save this generation of children, there are no more excuses. I'm not a special ed parent, but I am a parent, and I am an American, and this is and your tax dollars pay for this, and every single person should care about. These are children. These are the most innocent, tiniest, little human, innocent people that we are allowing to be destroyed. And if that does not enrage every single person out there to get something lit up under their butt to do something, I don't know what's wrong with people. And that's how I feel. And everybody knows that's how I feel, is that I don't have a special education child, but the fact that you have had to go through this is that I look at my little children and I feel blessed, but I'm not going to just sit there and be like, oh, well, I don't have I'm going to go out in the extra time that I do have, because my children are not special education. I'm going to devote that time to you guys, because that is the way humanity works. We are not divided by our skin color anymore. We are cutting that off here, is that's where they want us to be. They want us to hate each other because of our skin color. They want us to hate each other so that we can't be there for each other. And today is the day that we are saying no more. So we will get...
IDEA is a civil rights law.
Yes, it is.
Designed to protect an oppressed class of citizens who are, in this case, disabled children. They're children.
I have
They're
said
innocent
that
children.
for years. The only historically marginalized children that anybody should utter out of their mouth is special education children. The only, before anybody else, is the special education children of this state. I don't want to hear anything about it, because just going to school board meetings and talking to special education parents, I cannot believe the fact that this is one of those issues that flies under the radar, and they go up and, oh, Governor Youngkin is signing this today. And it is the rage in me to hear them, to know these stories and to go to a board of education. I challenge everybody, go to one and hear these parents plead and beg and cry, and have the Board of Education of Virginia sit there and go, don't care. Literally don't care. I challenge everybody. So
it is disturbing when you do go and you have valid concerns and you think you're making your voice heard and you just get ignored. And I believe that in many cases they are told to ignore you, but that's not okay. That's not okay of our elected officials who are taking oath of office to support the Constitution of the United States and the Virginia Constitution, and our children, with especially, I mean, all children are protected by laws, are supposed to be, correct? But you know, when our special needs children who already have disadvantages that are none of their fault, you know, when your elected officials and your and their reports who have, you know, are supposed to follow ethics standards, they're supposed to be following the law, and that does not occur. It's very disturbing, it's damaging. And yeah, so it just feels like sometimes you go to these meetings and you're just ignored, but you know, they take an oath of office to follow the laws and the constitutions, and you know, we need a very, very strong accountability model for all. And that may need to be what happens to really turn the tide here.
And the only way that we do that again is united. Is that when, like Lobby Day, noon at the bell tower, is that it is the moment that we as a state, because the Richmond Capitol is at the intersection of 64 and 95. There's about 35 school divisions that can get there within less than an hour. I have traveled all over the state to speak for free. And if I have ever put out a call, I've never charged a dime, is that if we can, is that call out of work, make an excuse. I have done everything. I know that you have worked your butt off, is that if we have a show of force in numbers, that we are united. This is not a white parent, black parent. This is a parent. This is a child abuse issue.
And yeah, and I would say that a lot of persons, in my case, it's true as well. You know, I do what I can and I go where I can go when I can, but there are a lot of students with disabilities who have, for example, autism therapy can be 4, 5, 6 days a week, you know, every night. You have children who have unpredictable medical needs and they're constantly in the hospital, or constantly needing urgent appointments. And
I talk to you.
It's very much harder for us.
And it makes me.
Yeah, it's harder. So it's harder for us to make commitments. It's harder for us to do that because when you already know your life is unpredictable and your child is.
But that's what I'm saying, is that's why we, the parents, the community that does not have these children, our children, I'm so tired of hearing, I'm so glad I don't have kids in school these days. That is the most enraging thing I have ever heard. My children go to private school, okay, which I'm about to homeschool them, is that my kids are not, you know, my kids have been pulled out for 1.5 years, but who's at the Chesterfield County school board meetings giving them hell over what they're doing to other people's children? Me.
Well, if people were more aware of how much tax dollars are being wasted on denying education and services to the innocent disabled children who need it, they would probably, if they looked at the waste that's going into that and how
Well, your
people are
tax
being
dollars.
treated, and there's a lot of sometimes lies, there's a lot of deception, there's a lot of falsification
They lie.
of
I
a
mean, I'll
lot
say
of
it.
things. Well, I have a tremendous amount of proof, so uh
You know
and
me, is that I mean, you treat my kids one way, you're gonna feel my wrath until the day that I die. And I'm not kidding. Is that we know the truth. And
well,
what it
if you assert your strength, oftentimes they will turn it around and use it against you and
see
call you
everybody
a bully
from the
when
left
you are
and the right.
being actively very highly bullied. And I've reported incidences that have never gone anywhere. And that's a
See, here's the
problem with
thing. They can
ethics.
call me a bully, but that school board is elected. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm a tax paying citizen. If they do, okay, for example, they gave my daughter the assignment, what drugs, they told her what drugs are. They gave her pictures how to use it. And then they sent her home with an assignment to look for it in her house and to look
Yeah.
for it on the internet. And if you think that as a parent, you're not going to feel my fury, because what if my child died and I never knew they gave her that assignment? Who would be responsible? Me. But who's responsible? The school, because they decided that was inappropriate for my child. Is that if I'm going to be a bully, because the Constitution is very clear. The school board can promulgate their authority away to every committee that they want, but the Constitution is very clear. They are responsible. And so if you want to promulgate your authority away to a committee, it doesn't matter, because when hell comes down, it is you as the elected official. So you can call me a bully, but I guarantee you, if you sat down with me and had a debate, I would shut you down, because you know nothing about what you're talking about.
Well, you're not involved in IEP meetings, and you're not involved in due process, and you'd have to be involved in those things and other things that
I'm
have
just talking
occurred.
about in general, holding these people
Well, the
accountable.
retaliation is real.
Oh,
Retaliation is very real. Um, and I've said that at school board meetings. You know, I go when I can and I speak because I already been treated so bad. Can they do a whole lot worse? Because other
when my
people are
daughter was
afraid to
still
speak
in,
up
I
because they
used to
know they're
call
going to be
every
bullied,
day,
harassed, and retaliated, because that's what they do to you.
but they do it until there's enough where they can't do it anymore. And that's what the thing is that until there are enough people that they saying, no, you are not going to target me because I come to a school room and I hold you accountable for what your job and you are failing my children, they will stop doing it. If there's one or two people speaking out, fighting, they can do it. If there's 5, 10, if there's 100 in 20 different divisions, if there's 5 in 50 different divisions, then they can't do it anymore. And it is,
Well, and that's true. And, you know, I have to say this too, and then we should go. But, you know, for years, people in the public have stood up for Aaron, people who I still haven't even met. And then there was one time last year, you know, for years, people talked about and dedicated their entire speaking time, some of them, to Aaron, because I was begging for help. Can't you help her? Can't you? He's a human child. Why aren't you helping him out? You know, and then there was a time when, and I still owe some thanks to some people for this. I haven't been able to go to some meetings for a while because of lots of things going on. But, um, you know, and then so often at school board meetings, you might see people who have political leaning on one side and political leaning on another. And then two people who
but we
typically may not
unite.
agree on anything.
Hey,
They
we
came to
unite.
bat for me when I could not go, and they spoke to me by name and said, "Why are you not helping Wendy out?" And when the public can
Listen,
speak up for a child,
if Mike
and
and
a
I can
public can
come
speak
up,
up for a mom, and the school board and the superintendent just ignores you, that's a problem when you have the
it is
public behind you.
if you have an extreme liberal and me can come together after speaking, after you, and come together and say, what are you doing about this? That is a
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah,
Um,
the public knows. You know, the
yes.
public knows, and you know, obviously there's a lot of information that's going to be coming out that will expose some of the things that I have been subject to.
Virginia is under threat of losing its ID. I mean, but that then again, it won't happen because it's so spread out. But Virginia has been is that it is time for the federal government to come in and do something because,
Well,
I mean,
Aaron's on their targeted items list in numerous occasions where the VDOE has failed him too.
right.
And not everyone in the VDOE has failed Aaron. It's really mostly systematic problems with sometimes not performing certain duties as they are supposed to by their regulations. And some maybe have been accidental, some maybe not. But the
you are one
USDOE, the USDOE is aware that there have been additional challenges trying to get rights enforced by VDOE. And I'm trying to say this in the right way because there's things out there that are not.
I'm
end,
not in legal contention right now, so you have to protect.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, there's reports out there. Okay.
Right.
If somebody wants to go find them, and they're not easy to find, but there are reports out there, and some of the things I've made public.
You can find right now you can find every OCR violation that's been in this state that's being, and I will post it on my page when we get off. But while we close, I think
everything's so complicated, it's very difficult to do. And then sometimes people get in a new territory and they don't know what to do. But the child's rights are supposed to like come first.
Yes, and I want to do one thing for Monday because I will be speaking at the bell tower. This is the email. I want to know, and you can spread this far and wide to everybody. You can just give me the child's first name and their last initial. I don't want to. And I want to read a list of every sped child in this state that has been violated and has not had their education. And so if you and anybody, that is the email, and I will be at the podium, and I want to read and you can put division, you can put, you can put Mary from Spotsylvania or grade, or if you want to, whatever you want to. I don't want to name them, but if everybody spreads the word so that we can get an actual how big this is. That is something that me being in this that I can do if you can't come. But if you are a sped parent and you cannot come, call your neighbor, call your aunt, call somebody that you love and say, I need you to go for me and represent my child. And that is where humanity should be right now, is I cannot get with my sped child and my other children, get down there on Monday. Somebody loves you enough that if you said, I need you to go and be the person that stands up for my child on Monday. And that is where we as Virginians and humanity should be. And you can send me an email, but we are going to I will post everything I can about this bill, we're going to follow it. We're going to get on top of how you write your legislators, and we're going to find out more information. And this is just the beginning, but go to lobby in a box, is that there are bills like this that will blow your mind. And this is why we have to unite, because last year I was down lobbying alone when I was surrounded by the VEA, the VSBA, the Counselors Association, the Superintendents Association, is that we have got to get people down there. But this is a beginning. This is what Parent Team 6 is meant to do. We could have a sped weekly show, devote every week.
We could do that every week for 3 years and not cover everything.
We could do sped Tuesdays, and whether it's you or a different mom, or we can have 3 moms, that is what I want to do, is we have to bring together, not just like, I know 100 million things that could probably tie in, and you probably know, is that we have fought alone so long that is why we are so far behind the 8 ball. Is the only way that we win this is united we stand, and that is it. So
yeah, and I appreciate your support, and also for I'm receiving a tremendous amount of support from a lot of various places. There has been national interest in Aaron's case. I've been contacted by attorneys from Texas, Rhode Island, California who can't help me, but Aaron's case in particular is so egregious because it's public school. You know, I'm trying to
well,
get
and
him
that's the
out of
thing
a
is
private
that,
day school, which costs the school division and the taxpayers more, and just into the public school
but
everybody
hey,
else
at
goes
least they're
into.
paying for yours, because we know people who Chesterfield County would rather spend $1 million on Sans Anderson to fight them. And we know parents that are paying for their children to be appropriately educated because Chesterfield would rather spend $1
Yep.
million on attorneys in 1
Parents are
month to
going,
fight.
yep. Parents are going bankrupt.
They're
Parents
getting
and
second
children are
mortgages.
suffering.
Yes, parents are getting second mortgages to try to get their children educated, and Chesterfield County, just to bring one up, $1 million in 1 month to fight one mother who just wanted them to help her pay for the education because they failed her child egregiously. $1 million they would rather pay. That's just 1 month. And so there are
I
so
think they're in
many
the $1 million
issues.
mark with Aaron, and this is not asking to send him to a special school. This is to get him out of a special school
Well,
into public
Chesterfield County is
school.
one of the only counties that follows open government with posting the county's checkbook. And so you can pull it up each month and see how much they write to Sans Anderson.
Well, I have some invoices, and then there's some expenditures after that, but the expenditures are greater than what they look like on the checkbooks, because if you look at what they
Oh,
send to
yeah.
their attorney groups, there's other expenses that you may not know who they go to, like transcription
They have
services.
plenty of money. I don't want to hear
There's
they're under
hearing officers, you
they're
may not know who
spending.
they are. There's additional security and police and additional staff. There's a lot of additional expenses than just what's really highly visible on the books. But one
These
of the
schools
other
are not
things that,
underfunded is the point. They are not
yeah, I mean,
underfunded.
they're spending who knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep my child out of school. And
The Chromebooks that have 80 to 90 I have all the contracts. Millions and millions and millions of dollars on data tracking in the Chromebooks. Kindergartners reading on Chromebooks. That's a great idea. But the fact that special education children do not have an option.
They need books. Many of them need books, and my child is one of them that has to have books. And
I work nationally. People are shocked when they hear that Virginia has no books, but they are especially shocked when they find out that special education children do not have an opt-out option and that special education children are forced to learn on a Chromebook.
And many of them cannot do it. And my child is one who cannot do it on his own on a computer. He doesn't see a box as a teacher, and he's incapable of doing that. So
I'm a researcher.
with
I can't
one-on-one
read on a
support
computer.
and leadership, he can, but he still has to have a school environment. But there's a lot of children who can't, so they were left in the dust. There'll be more to come on that when I can get to it. There's a lot to come when I can get to it.
But this is a good start, and I appreciate Wendy. And we are going to, between today and tomorrow, I will be staying at the Marriott tomorrow night with no children, and so I will have time to
let me know.
You can come down and hang. It's where right outside, right by the Capitol, where we're having the Virginia Medical Freedom. But I did not want to head down there. But
yeah, I'm just kidding. I can't do that, but that would sound great. A night away. What?
You can come sneak away and take a big bubble bath, because I made sure I had a nice bath. But
well, thank you for this. So I appreciate that in the forum, and
we will get
hopefully
it
other people have been enlightened a little bit to some of the, the pretty significant challenges in special education.
But if you're just
in my case, and also the things that we really need support with. And again, the focus is on the SB96, because there's a tremendous number of us that just don't understand where this bill came from. But it's very much putting the responsibility on the parents that are the responsibility by law of the school division, and the things that we talked about. We talked about FAPE, volunteer work. We talked about independence transition. And those are things that are required by the school divisions to provide, not to push on the parents, not to push on the children's health insurance.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's the nutshell right there. I just did it.
It is. So
thank you.
All right. And we're going to get bullet points. We're going to let people know who to write. And we're going to continue doing this because there's CPS legislation coming up. There's other things coming up. But this is a great place to start. And I thank you for reaching out, Wendy.
Oh, thank you.
Love to you always. And I will see you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Bye. So, guys, that's it. This is what we're going to start doing with Parent Team 6. Wendy's amazing. She brings a lot to the table because she works with both sides of the aisle. And that's what we have to start doing is they have divided us long enough. There are such bigger issues. We know where I stand with the transgender issue, but there is that there are such bigger issues. The safety of our children is number one to me, but we have to they want us divided on that issue. And it is a very important issue, very important issue. But as long as we stay stuck on that issue and we cannot get past it, is that the slippery slope is now, we are at a pinnacle point. Virginia has been so far behind in education for 15 to 20 years that it's probably, I mean, I say this regularly, it's the most frightened I've been in a long time, especially with the launch of this Office of Mental and Health, whatever is, they've been doing mental health to children long enough. It is create the problem, then give the solution, is that it is going to be a never ending cycle. And I'm going to close with this. Children have this thing, we have this thing in our brains called a prefrontal cortex. Children's prefrontal cortex, which is reasoning, does not start developing until their middle adolescence. Mid-20s is when it finishes developing. They have been talking about things like anxiety, suicide, depression, anxiety. This is not COVID, guys. So Chesterfield County had SEL contracts with James Lane in 2017, okay, prior to COVID. This is not mental health. This did not come from COVID, okay? These children are mentally ill for a variety of reasons, and layering more mental health curriculum on top of it is not going to solve anything. You have to get to the root of it, which is why they became this way, is that you have a prefrontal cortex, and things like a Republican bill where kindergarten through 12th grade have suicide badges on them, which passed last year. Kindergartners having a suicide hotline badge. How does that fix the mental health problem? Giving a kindergartner a badge access to talk about suicide. They don't have a prefrontal cortex to understand reasoning, to understand the reasoning of what suicide, the finality of it. There are so many things involved with these children did not come out of COVID mentally ill. That is what people need to understand. But there are so many things having to do with education. And tonight is our first time that our Parent Team 6 has done its objective, which is bringing together groups that people don't normally see me talking to. I'm normally social emotional learning. I'm normally data collection. Is that it is time that we united, we stand, we get our theaters of war in order, our generals, air support. I have a master's in geopolitical war history. So everything to me is the battleground of education, is that we have no war plan. We don't know who our enemy is. And these are classic things that you do when you go into war, is that we have to unite the fight. And and another show is that this includes gun. 2A people, you need to be involved in this too, because red flag laws, if they pop up, every child in about 5 years under the age of about 25, 2A, gone out the window. There go your guns. They're all mentally ill. So pt6.org. Right now, it's just me. If you want to get involved, if you want to help, if you want to do whatever, unite the front. If you are this person or that person and you want to put some effort in, contact me. But I still want you to, if you know special ed parents or children that have been egregiously violated by this state, please send me just their name, first name and initial, because I would like to have a list of children for lobby day that I can tell the world. At least, I don't need any details. Just email me a bit about their story and please pass the word. And please, like I said, somebody, if you can't come, noon, the Capital City Bell Tower, Richmond, Virginia, we will be there. And it is finally, for the first time, our moment to say, united we stand. We will not be divided anymore. Our children will all be educated. Our children will not be ignored. And our children will grow up in an America where they are valued and their civil rights, their human rights are protected by the people in that building known as the Capitol that will be there on Monday as duty bearers and as their representatives of the people of their constituency. We will return this to the constitutional republic, because if not, we will no longer be free. Literally. What we're giving away, our children will not have. So with that, that is SB96. Look it up, rewind the show, be astounded at the absolute lunacy coming out of our General Assembly. And then ask the question, write to your representatives and say, can you explain this to me? Because this makes no sense. If that's all you know about it, what is this? Because we have to start exercising we the people. We've been lazy long enough. We've been hands off. That's our fault. We're no longer hands off. We're here. We're going to start exercising we the people. We elected you. We want to know what you're doing about it. What are you doing? You don't work for the governor, okay? You work for we the people who elected you. Even if it's not your political party, write them. And that's the problem too. Right needs to be right and left. D, write the R. It doesn't matter. We are Americans. We are all under one constitution. That's the thing. Your person didn't get elected. That doesn't mean you go, oh, well. It's not the way it works. Not the way it works. That's why America is the way it is now. Get involved. Be we the people, not we the hands off. So with that, good night. I've got to go check on my children. Wendy, say goodbye.
Thank you. I appreciate this, and just we when I say we, special education moms and parents. Now, not every special education child is aggrieved, but there are some that are just so immeasurably aggrieved. And those of us who are in that position have the hardest battles to climb. And we do need the support of others to help us in this battle, because we have a lot on our plates. There's no caregivers. My child qualifies for long-term care. He has no school. So who is doing all of his care 100% of the time, 24 hours a day? Me. So it's overwhelming, but I am learning a lot. And I know that I have to spend the rest of my life because none of us have gotten the knowledge and where we are without learning from someone else pulling us up. Right. And I've decided that I know that the rest of my life I have to do what I can, given our situation, to stand up for the other disabled students, because it has become what my calling definitely is. And that's what I will spend the rest of my life found your hill trying to do.
Your hill upon which you're going to die on. I have found my hill, and they just happen to be side by side. So we have found our hills, and we will die on them together.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, girl.
Thank you.
I love you. Take care. Have a great night.
Love you too.
All right, bye, guys.